Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is June the 4th, 2026. Hopefully this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Thursday, everyone. Hopefully the day treated you well, treated you right. As for me, it's been a pretty good day. I got another nice round of sleep last night. I woke up feeling pretty good. Got myself together. We got to work. Work was solid, though I will say it was pretty slow. I wound up just getting out early for the day and wound up going to the gym, as is tradition. And it wasn't too bad for a Thursday, getting out as early as I did. I think I got to the gym around like 3 o'clock. So I was finally able to have a day at the Smith machine. I did it a little bit differently than I normally would, but still the same kind of situation where I'm doing a bunch of upper body exercises, a bunch of lower body exercises. So, felt pretty good to get back in the swing of that. Then we did some core work, did about 20 minutes of cardio after that, and we called it a day. Post that, I have been having this nagging itch since last weekend. I think I mentioned it. I've just been wanting that motherfucking Whopper. So I went to Burger King to satiate my desires. And I don't know. Was it worth it? No, not really. But I don't regret it. I got a double Whopper with bacon. I was tempted to get the jalapeno one. I think they have some Mandalorian bounty burger or some shit. I don't know. But I wanted to get as a classico style Whopper as I could. Just because, I feel like they've been talking about there was a whole new Whopper. We made it better somehow. I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, let me give this thing a test drive. So I got the Whopper, and then I got a large order of fries and a medium order of onion rings. And I knew the onion rings were going to disappoint, but I was hoping. I was just hoping. Maybe we got that old thing back. Maybe I was going to get a premium batch. I don't know. I will say, given, just for mentioning it, service was really good. Everybody was nice and, pretty quick. We love that. But that being said, the new Whopper wasn't giving new Whopper. It felt like just another day at the office. Just another day at the burger factory. It was good. I didn't hate eating it. And I was also thinking about the fact that I'm even though I paid, I think, $16 for what I just mentioned, for a cheap burger, quote unquote, that was good. It was yummy. I also got a side of barbecue sauce. But the fries, not good. I was defending the Burger King fries, for a time, but man, them things are not good. They've not reinvented those, that's for sure. And the onion rings they were fine. I put a couple on the Whopper, which was nice, give the old rodeo burger vibe, but I don't know, man. Like I said, it scratched the itch, but Burger King just doesn't hit like it used to. What can I say? But needless to say, after I had my burger down at home, I did some research because I really didn't have any news at that moment. Felt like the trickle really was kind of just stuff I had already covered. So I was like, I wonder what I'm gonna get. But I did find some things that I wanted to yap about. So yeah, let's go ahead and do our startup and let's get into it. I will say, after that burger, and then just kind of sitting down, doing my research. By the time I was on my second pass, I was so tired. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just take a nap. And I was like, no, we gotta lock in. We gotta do the episode because if I take a nap now, we are headed for a disaster. All right. First story comes from Good Morning America. 18-year-old killed, 3 wounded in high school graduation shooting. A teenager was killed and 3 people were wounded, including an 11-year-old, when gunfire erupted outside a high school graduation ceremony in Northern California, according to police. The shooting took place at about 7:15 p.m. local time Wednesday in the parking lot of Fairfield High School after a ceremony ended there for Sim Yeto High School graduates, the Fairfield Police Department said. 4 victims were shot, police said. An 18-year-old died while an 11-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 25-year-old were injured. Let's see. It is not clear if the 18-year-old was a graduating student. There is no ongoing threat to the community, police said, but they did not comment on the suspect or the suspects involved. About 1,000 people were at the graduation, with hundreds of potential witnesses to this tragedy, police said in a statement on Thursday. Detectives are currently identifying and interviewing these witnesses and are actively following up on investigative leads, police said. This is a story that kind of came down the pipe. Obviously very, sad to hear about that. This is, the start of a lot of people's lives, and, people are coming to celebrate that and cherish that. And, all of it just completely disrupted. And for one person, their life's completely over now. So that's really sad. Also, they're, even though they're saying, hey, there's no threat to the community, if these people are still at large, that's something that's going to be in the back of people's heads for sure. Especially without understanding even, what was it about? Like, what was the motivation? What caused this? What started it? So hopefully I can come back to the story with more information in the future. Let's move on to our next story. This is a bit of a local story, but we're hitting a national level with it. And it's a big scam. We love a big scam. From CBS News. Luxury cars seized after alleged $30 million fraud ring involving Children's Health Services busted, officials say. Now, obviously, it is very unfortunate that children are involved in said scam. I want to obviously preface that. Federal law enforcement officials on Thursday announced that 2 Ohio State employees and 2 co-conspirators were indicted in connection with an alleged $30 million Medicaid billing fraud scheme involving children's behavioral health services that were never rendered. At a press conference in Ohio, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said the Medicaid fraud case was just one of several cases unsealed over the last week, targeting some $50 million of fraud, including one case involving $1.4 million in COVID-19 loan fraud scheme. All 4 defendants involved in the Medicaid fraud case turned themselves in to authorities this week, a source familiar with the investigation told CBS News. As part of the investigation, 14 vehicles were seized, including a Maserati, a Mercedes, a Bentley, and a McLaren, according to a source. The defendants are alleged to have offered therapeutic behavioral services and psychotherapy to young adults and children who were attending summer camps, church groups, and recreational programs, according to the source. The alleged ringleaders diagnosed every single recipient with a behavioral adjustment disorder, which allowed them to profit off of the vulnerable children, according to the source. But no assessment testing was ever done, the behavioral services never occurred, and the kids never got any care. Participants were required to complete intake packets and provide their Medicaid recipient number, which are required to bill for the services, according to the source. A medical assessment was also required, but according to the source, the defendants didn't conduct a single test. Thursday's announcement came from the Justice Department, state officials, and other members of President Trump's task force to eliminate fraud, which is led by Vice President J.D. Vance as part of an effort to beef up efforts to combat fraud against federal and state government programs. A spokesperson for Vance called the Medicaid fraud allegations disgusting in a statement to CBS News. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to skip that. Republicans and Democrats have traded bars about who is responsible for creating circumstances that allow for fraud and who is doing more to fix it. CBS News has been investigating multiple forms of fraud for months. One investigation into hospice fraud examined the business and financial records of every hospice currently operating in Los Angeles County, applying the same indicators identified by state auditors as potential red flags for fraud. The analysis revealed that over 700 of the roughly 1,800 hospices in Los Angeles County triggered multiple red flags for fraud as defined by the state. Fraud in Minnesota has also been the focus of the Trump administration. CBS News has investigated that the state's biggest fraud scheme to date and interviewed the alleged mastermind, 45-year-old Amy Bach. In an exclusive interview from her jail cell, Bach defended her conduct, admitted regrets, and argued that state officials who she worked with should bear some of the blame. It was the first time Bach spoke publicly since she was arrested for her role in what prosecutors say was a $250 million COVID-era effort to defraud a federal program to feed the hungry. Now, I want to make an aside here. I don't mind the administration going for fraud. Just like I don't mind the administration abroad doing like prison swaps and getting motherfuckers home. These are all things that are like considered low-hanging fruit to me. And it's like, good, yeah, you did it. But like, especially when it comes to how the Trump administration has gone about the fraud aspect of this, and specifically with Minnesota, like they take it to a place, and we've seen this too with Ohio, where they take it to a racial place. They take it to a fucking cultural place. And they say, it's actually this group of people that are doing all of the fraud, and we need to go in and stop that right now. And then we also need to deport these people and get them out of here. And it's like, I guess they're getting to like have their cake and eat it too with that in their head. And it's just like, it's just a lack of caring or whatever. These are just political pawns to move around. But these are people's fucking lives. And on the ground, people take this shit and they run with it to the point where they're doing bomb threats on daycares and shit like that, man. Like people's lives are being threatened. Like, so it's a whole other way of going about it and perceiving this shit that I find disgusting and abhorrent. I don't mind actually seeing an administration, I don't care whether you're red, blue, or fucking whatever, going after these kind of things. That makes sense to fucking do. Is it a losing effort? I kind of think so, because at the end of the day, people are still, they're gonna scam. They're gonna do fraud. They're gonna fucking try to get away with this shit. It's just an unfortunate reality. And as much as we want to regulate this shit, we are just not good at it. Especially when you have an administration that is actively robbing from its own people to lace its own fucking coffers. That's a whole other episode. But yeah, what is it? At Thursday's news conference, FBI Director Kash Patel unveiled a new type of list laying out what he called the most wanted fraudsters. And it's just like a list of people. It's like, I mean, okay, it's giving America's Most Wanted type beat, but just specifically for fraudsters. And, you know, you're supposed to take a look at these people and you know, be aware. Like, okay, but am I supposed to be calling in and doing your fucking job for some fraudsters? Like, these aren't people killing people, I guess, but like, I don't know. Hey, at least I'm seeing these faces of these people, and I'm going, okay, all right, I'm gonna dodge this guy or this gal, and you know, I'm not gonna do business with them. That's for sure. If I see their face on some shit. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like you're just kind of making waves, doing publicity, acting like you're doing something. But hey, that is very on brand for this administration. You know, so yeah, this was an interesting fraud scheme all the same, though it is unfortunate that kids' lives are being, you know, turned in, because it's like, I imagine you're sitting here, you're getting this diagnosis, maybe it's helpful, maybe it's even more confusing because they're just kind of slapping it on you. I don't know here, but then you're not getting any treatment for it, you're not getting anything for it, you're just given this label and you're like, okay, I guess I have this, and what, you're left to AI, Google, whatever, your fucking way through it. Meanwhile, you could be getting treatment for this fucking thing, or maybe you fucking shouldn't, because like I said, they probably just slapped this label on you so they could just run their scheme, but they just needed your name. They just needed your ID, and that was it. And to just give you a diagnosis, that's all the scam was. That's all it is, and the rest of it's just fucking vapor. So yeah, I would imagine that's weird, and that would also breed a healthy distrust of not just maybe government, but I guess more important, like my doctors and, you know, the medical field in general. I would totally get that. That's a bad origin story. Let's see. There's more yada 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 here. Minnesota does get mentioned again. Also, I guess I could go to this part. Federal Trade Commission Chairman Andrew Ferguson announced that the federal government was formally decertifying Hawaii's Medicaid fraud control unit over allegations it had received millions and millions of dollars to fight fraud, and has consistently been one of the lowest performing performing fraud units in the country. This morning, the Inspector General, in coordination with the task force, exercised his statutory obligation to end the grants being paid to Hawaii to make sure that money that goes out the door to the states is actually going to fight fraud, he said. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how tenuous that is. I think essentially they're saying, hey, you're lowest performing on this. You're not, cracking enough heads here. So we're going to yank your funding on this. I don't know if there's that much validity to the fraud at hand. You'd have to show it to me. And then once again, I've said this before, I'll say this fucking again. Do I trust anything that comes out of this administration? No, you have to double, triple check this shit. You have to verify it with something else, because I don't trust anything that comes out of any of these fucking heads, from the Trump admin. I just don't, man. Do you think I'm listening to Cash Patel with Ernest? No. Hell no. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. To a former Trump head from term 1, then turned fucking enemy, from Al Jazeera. Trump official turned foe John Bolton accepts plea deal in documents case. Now, let me take a water break. I was actually surprised by this. I'm not gonna lie to you. Normally I like to have that air of smugness, like, this doesn't surprise me at all. No, I kind of thought this guy was gonna, rock it out with old Donnie T. But no, I guess he was like, I might be guilty? ? I don't know. But John Bolton, a former national security advisor to President Donald Trump, is set to accept a plea deal in a case related to the handling of classified documents, according to media in the United States. Bolton, now a prominent Trump critic, reportedly intends to plead guilty to one count of illegal retention of sensitive national security documents and has agreed to pay a fine of more than $2 million. There's something about the price tag here that makes me feel he must have been worried about this one way or another. Either he was worried he was going to have to pay more than $2 million in terms of legally fighting this with Donald Trump in the government, whatever, or he was like, no, there's enough of a trail here between the emails I sent to my daughter, between the actual information I had and was sitting on, between the shit that got leaked in the hack, I believe, like Iran hacked their shit or whatever, that he was compromised. The jig was up. And that actually the Trump administration, which I've said before, has a nasty habit of just rolling around in the mud until they find something on you, something that they feel is incriminating enough to say, hey, you did this wrong. It's illegal. We're going to send you to jail. It's time to pay the piper now. Revenge time. And essentially Bolton's like, nah, I would plead this out with you. And I'm surprised. But then once again, if you look at the math and you say, I don't think I can actually win this in court, or I don't think I can afford this, it's better just to pay out, then I do get it, I guess. And also, there's not going to be a tear shed for fucking John fucking Bolton. Fuck him. At the end of the day, he was a part of the Bush administration. He did fucking horrible shit there to get shit done. Didn't give a fuck. And then, also Trump won. He was going to, tame the tiger on that shit, realized he couldn't, realized he was actually too moderate for this shit or whatever, not MAGA enough, more or less, and, hops off and makes a book off of, the information he was in the room to get. So, not really rooting for him, but different, like I said, I expected him to fight this like Comey was fighting this, because we already know Comey's on his second time around versus the Trump administration with the whole 86-47, which I feel like the winds are kind of leaning a little bit more favorably towards him, just from what I've been hearing. This a little bit of side news stuff, not getting into, but yeah, I guess not for Bolton. He said, nah, I'm willing to make a deal. I'm willing to make a deal, Donnie T. And he did. And that's not how he sounds. I just wanted to do that accent. I don't know. There's more yada, 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 but I feel like we just did the full Isaiah's way, and I like it like that. I will say that the Al Jazeera news outlet, this article, probably one of the better ones to read if you want to read it. I usually like to leave my 2 cents on an article, whether it feels spin badly or, fine. And I would say this was fine. This was good. Thumbs up. Whatever. I don't know. It gets the Isaiah's Newsstand seal of approval. Thumbs up. All right. Moving on. This is our last story for the night. Let's go ahead and take our last break, and then we got to do a little bit of hashtag boat watch. Ugh. All right. From Reuters, U.S. military says it carried out strike in Eastern Pacific, killing 2 people. The U.S. military on Wednesday said it carried out a strike on a vessel in the Eastern Pacific, killing 2 people. The U.S. Southern Command said on X that intelligence had confirmed that the vessel was engaged in narco trafficking operations. Put that in quotations. Let's see here. And then I'm going to follow this up with article from PBS News. Let's see. Fact-checking U.S. military boat strikes in the Caribbean and Pacific as death toll passes 200. I just really wanted to get that number just for the record. I believe there's been something around, at least 59 strikes between the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific. Which is wild, because essentially it's just us being judge, jury, and executioner out at sea and, saying, hey, we're protecting America from drugs, which is just not true. It's just not happening. The drugs are still happening. People are still doing the shit in America. This shit has not done shit for fuck. You're just killing people. So you don't have to do the paperwork, I guess. I find that to be very disheartening. I don't want to look away or skim over that. But, that's going to be the news for today. That's all I got. Let's see. If you'd like to help out, support the effort I do have at Patreon. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. Become a newsie today. If you always hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow on TikTok. Follow on Spotify. Follow on Apple Podcasts. Wherever you like to listen. Leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is always caring. 5 stars on Spotify, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts are always appreciated. But if you don't do any of that, I'm just thankful that you hung out with me. Excuse me. You let me burp in your ear or over your speaker. Thank you kindly. That was a meaty burp. But no, really, truly, seriously, I just appreciate, being able to yap to you about my life, about my times, about the times at hand, the world around us, the trials, the tribulations, the triumphs. I don't know. But thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.